And then when they answer you, you ask them another question, and another question, and another question, and another question, until you get to the point where you're like, wow, okay, I really see where you're coming from. I don't agree with your perspective or maybe even your methods to exert your beliefs, but I do understand the reason for you having those beliefs. And I would have to say that if I was in your shoes, I probably wouldn't be much different than you. And now we're connected.
Welcome to the Weekly Transit, a podcast exploring the intersection of Western astrology and Jungian psychology. Astrology is a language that communicates how the planets and stars influence life on Earth, while psychology helps us navigate both conscious and unconscious experiences. Together, these tools offer the potential for self-understanding, growth, and transformation. Join astrologer Scott Tajarian and me, psychotherapist Gabriella Durso, as we dive into the cosmic forecast each week.
Welcome to the Weekly Transit. This is the week of July 15th to the 21st. Hi, Gabriella.
Hi, Scott.
This week, we've got a lot to cover, a lot happening, highlighted by the full moon in Capricorn, which is the second full moon of 2024 in Capricorn. The last full moon was also in Capricorn. That was at 1 degree in Capricorn. This is at 29 degrees, the final degree of Capricorn. Mars also transits into Gemini this week. But there's also several alignments that are occurring this week that are very impactful. Some might say historical. So we're going to get into all of that now.
Where do you want to start?
Well, before I do, I just want to give an overarching highlight of where the planets are this week in terms of the Sun and Mars. The Sun is transiting from 23 to 29 degrees in Cancer, so the last 7 degrees of Cancer, while Mars transits from 26 degrees in Taurus to 0 degrees in Gemini. And this is significant for those who were born between 1981 and 84. If you were born between 1981 and 84, then the Sun will be squaring your Pluto. There could be tension there in terms of transforming your identity or transforming how you identify. Maybe conflicts, agitation coming up for you through these transformations. Mars transiting from 26 in Taurus to 0 degrees in Gemini is going to create stress for those born between 1954 and 1958. If you were born between 1954 and 1958, Mars will be squaring your Pluto, the god of war, squaring the god of death. If you were born between 1993 and 1996, Mars will be opposing your Pluto. So either way, there's tension in terms of the action that you're taking. Maybe you're being forced in a certain direction that you don't want to go, but you need to in order to transform some area of your life, depending on where this transit is occurring for you. And of course, if you're curious to learn how these transits, the transits that we're going to be discussing here on the podcast, or any transits, or if you're curious about your astrological code and you want to learn more about who you are, why you're here, and what you're meant to do with your life, and how to best work with the energy, I encourage you to contact me for a reading at theweeklytransit.com. Our first transit for the week is Mars, the god of war, the planet of action, aggression, and conflict, forming a conjunction with Uranus, the primordial sky god, the planet of revolution, rebellion, innovation, independence, and the unexpected, together forming a conjunction with Mars in Taurus. The fixed earth sign symbolized by the bull and ruled by Venus, the goddess of love. This conjunction occurs from July 12th to the 17th, that's Friday to Wednesday, with an exact conjunction occurring Monday, July 15th. Now, this is the third time this transit has occurred since Uranus transited into Taurus. This is the third and final time. The first time these two formed a conjunction in Taurus was January 20th, 2021, and the second time was August 1st, 2022. So think back to those dates, if that maybe gives you a clue on what you could be experiencing or what we could be experiencing collectively as Mars forms this conjunction with Uranus again in Taurus.
You mentioned some historical dates that you wanted to share?
Well, sure, because the last time before this section, so when I say this section, I'm saying Uranus began transit in Taurus in 2019. And so since then, this is the third time Mars has formed a conjunction in Taurus with Uranus since 2019. But the previous time that Uranus transited through Taurus, which was 1935 to 1942, Mars and Uranus formed 4 conjunctions in Taurus. And that was April 7th, 1936, March 28th, 1938, March 16th, 1940, and March 1st, 1942. These were all during the Great Depression and leading up to World War II, or into World War II, the early first few years of World War II. So there's some sort of revolution, maybe aggressive revolution, that is occurring with regards to our self-worth, our values, our material possessions. Like when you think of what has happened since 2019 or even 2021, January 2021, when this conjunction first occurred in this recent time that Uranus is in Taurus, how many people have moved? We've moved. I've moved twice since January of 2021. You've moved once. And how many people do you know? I know several people that have moved cities, states, countries, even. People are moving because they don't feel secure where they are. Maybe where they're living, the values that they have are not reflected by the values of the place where they're living. And so they move someplace else.
And this was also during COVID.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that was, in terms of material security and feeling safe, was a huge factor.
Yeah, that's like the obvious elephant in the room
Right.
that I wasn't mentioning, but yes,
Yeah.
it's fine that we do. Of course, COVID created a lot of insecurity in terms of safety. And
financial security.
And financial security as well. Exactly.
And when you look at that energetically, our first chakra not only represents fear versus safety, but also money, financial security, and how safe we feel financially, but how safe we feel in our bodies too. So the first chakra is also connected to our immune system. So having a virus that was threatening your health is related to safety on many levels.
100%.
And connected back to material security.
Yes, absolutely. So our first chakra may feel exposed or unprotected during this week, but I look at that as we're being called to really recognize what it is we need, what it is we need to protect, what truly is important to me.
So to prioritize?
To prioritize your material needs. Like, what do I really need materially? What do I really need to be spending money on? And what don't I need to be spending money on? What should I be saving instead of spending?
I think it's a difficult ask, especially during this time where we have access to more than we've ever had access to before. Whether it's different types of food, different products to purchase, different places to go on vacation, different things to buy. Even in the mental health field, you could say in mental health or in the self-care industry in general, that it's not unique. Everything is just really cluttered right now around messaging of what you need to be doing. There's always a new supplement that you're supposed to be taking. There are these trends that come through that are trying to sort of persuade you, like, look at this shiny thing over here. This is what you should value. Like, everyone's supposed to be taking collagen now. It's like, or colostrum, or there's all these different, different shiny things, whatever.
Fads, new trends.
Whatever the trend is, and it's promising you something else that you're supposed to value, whether or not you actually value that or not.
Well, we're moving towards a period astrologically where we're being called to slow down a little bit, because on Tuesday, July 16th, is when Mercury transits into its retrograde shadow. And so when Mercury transits into its retrograde shadow and then begins its retrograde, the retrograde will begin on August 4th. It lasts until August 28th, and then it moves out of its retrograde shadow on September 11th. During that period, you kind of want to take stock right now of what should I be focused on. And so that new shiny thing that pops out at you and is trying to grab your attention between July 16th and September 11th, you want to just kind of put that off to the side. I'm not going to get drawn into the new shiny thing during this retrograde shadow. During this retrograde shadow, Mercury is going to be transiting through two signs. It's going to be transiting through Leo, the fixed fire sign, symbolized by the lion, and then Virgo, the mutable earth sign, symbolized by the Virgin. Then it's going to transit back into Leo, and then forward into Virgo again. So Leo is play, Virgo is work or routine. Mercury, the messenger of the gods, guide of souls to the underworld, is the planetary ruler of Virgo. So we've talked a lot about in these last couple weeks connecting your head to your heart, Mercury being the head or the mind, and the heart being your sense of fun. That's going to continue during this retrograde period.
So is that related to our values?
Well, I think so, because what you value is in your heart.
Well, because maybe the mind is what values the trend.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's...
I think I need this.
Yeah, what's more interested in the shiny, sparkly thing.
Yes. Yeah, I think I need this because that person on Instagram says that I need this. But how does that feel in your heart?
Mm-hmm.
Does it really bring you a sense of joy to make that purchase? Or are you making that purchase out of fear? That sort of, oh my God, I need this. If I don't have this, then something bad is going to happen to me.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe it's a fear that if I don't have this thing, that I won't be valued. It's
the keeping up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
You know that phrase?
Yeah.
Everyone else is doing it. Then that means I need to do it. If I'm not doing it, then there's something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel that way, then you're not really valuing yourself. You're putting your value in the thing, the object.
Right.
And that's what this Mars conjunct Uranus is about. It's like shaking you out of that material need.
Well, it's also highlighting the difference between maybe what you value that has conditions attached to it. Like, I value this when it serves this function for me, versus unconditionally valuing an experience, for example. Does that make sense?
What is an example of that? Can you be more specific?
Well, I guess I'm thinking about all of these flashy, silly products and supplements and different things that are out there. You value that to the extent that it is a means to an end. Like, you want to see the result, whatever the result is that's promised. But I think what you're saying is we're meant to be connecting to our unconditional values.
Yes.
Like, I value freedom.
Yes.
Freedom of self-expression,
So here's
for
an
example.
Here's an example. The example is, I keep hearing about this drug, Ozempic. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
It's like the weight loss drug or something.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's apparently, someone sent this to me, that there's like a joke about everyone in the Hamptons this summer has diarrhea because they all are taking Ozempic, and I guess that's like a side effect. It's they're shitting their pants because they're losing so much weight because of this drug. But it's like the thing, it's like, I need this drug so that I have the right body for the summer. Otherwise, people aren't going to value the way that I look.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which means they don't value me. So it's like, it's conditional.
But it also means that you don't value yourself.
True, yes.
You only value yourself because you're valuing yourself based on the opinions of whether or not you think other people value you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the example. Something like that. It's a new trend.
Yep.
Everyone's doing it. Look at how great she looks. I need to look like that. But Uranus is wanting us to shake ourselves out of that material need. To have true material independence, meaning you are not dependent on the material. You are independent in terms of how you view yourself, separate from the material. That this is a thing that I have. I'm not defined by it. It's something that I have, but I don't need it to be me. Mm-hmm. I can be me without this fill in the blank.
Right. I can value myself without having this thing.
Exactly. So then you bring in the Mercury energy, and well, Mercury, as it moves into its retrograde shadow, it forms a trine, a supportive aspect with Chiron, the wound and the ancient wisdom that is unlocked through healing that wound, transiting through the cardinal fire sign symbolized by the ram, Aries. This transit occurs from July 16th, the day that Mercury moves into its retrograde shadow, which is Tuesday, until Saturday, July 20th, with an exact trine occurring on Thursday, July 18th. So this is taking a conscious look at who you are and where you are most insecure in relation to your heart. Are you able to laugh? Are you able to have fun? Are you able to be yourself in the way that you communicate? Are you speaking from your heart? Are you listening from your heart? And if not, what are you afraid of?
Those are great questions.
You know, there's a lot of concern right now, at least in the United States, because it's an election year. And so people are maybe feeling a little more on edge, a little more agitated, a little more aggressive. But these transits are saying, value yourself separate from the material and listen from your heart. Have the courage to listen from your heart, to ask questions and really hear what the other side, if there is another side for you, the other person is saying. We need more listening and less talking at people. More speaking with people than talking at them. Where's the dialogue back and forth? Too much monologue.
Well, and where's the heart in politics?
Doesn't exist. So, yeah, exactly.
That feels like a stretch
Yes.
from where we are to this invitation you're describing.
Right.
I'm not quite sure how we get from here to there.
Well, hopefully it's going to happen. And hopefully it happens in the next couple of months, because this aspect with Mercury in Leo and Chiron in Aries occurs 3 times. This is the first time. It occurs again on August 23rd, when Mercury and Chiron will both be retrograde. And then it occurs a 3rd time on September 2nd, when Mercury is direct and Chiron is retrograde. So July 16th, they're both direct. August 23rd, they're both retrograde. And September 2nd, Mercury's direct, Chiron's retrograde. So 3 times within a 2-month span, we are being called to courageously listen and speak from our open hearts in a way that's authentic to you. So really take some time to reflect, think about these dates, think about how you're speaking, how you're listening, how you're in dialogue with others. Are you being authentic? Are they being authentic with you? We want to see some progress in this area. What do you want to see in terms of yourself between July 18th and September 2nd, in terms of how you're communicating?
I like what you said about speaking from the heart. I understand. But listening from the heart, I think, is maybe a new phrase. Can you share a little more about what that means to you?
I think when you listen from your heart, you're open to hearing other people and their perspective. There's no fear. Like, why do people want to shut other people up? Is it because they're confident? Or are they afraid?
Probably afraid.
Yeah, I would say 100% they're afraid. If you're trying to shut somebody up, it's because you're afraid of what they're saying. But if your heart's open, then you have the perspective that even though this individual has a different opinion, perspective, point of view than I do, they are no threat to me. We know, why is the heart ruled by Leo? What's the symbol for Leo?
The lion.
And what is the lion afraid of?
Nothing.
Exactly. So if you're listening with an open heart, with the heart of a lion, then there is no fear. I can hear this person say whatever they want to say to me. Take it in. Yeah, I want to know. The sun does not fear the earth. The earth, you get too close to the sun, you're done. The sun's the planetary ruler of Leo. So if you are enveloping and expressing that open-hearted, light, solar energy, then you have the ability to hear what anyone has to say and not be threatened by it.
And that doesn't mean you have to agree with it.
No one said that you did. Yeah. I'm not saying that you have to agree. But why are there wars? Why do people get in physical fights with each other? That happens when communication breaks down. When one side feels like they aren't being heard, so they need to communicate with violence, with physical acts of violence. It's a child throwing a temper tantrum. They don't have the words to communicate, and that's the shadow side of Leo, the other side of the coin, is that temper tantrum, childlike energy, that you're not being heard, so you throw a temper tantrum. You throw down your toys. You scream. You yell. You bang things around because you don't have the words to express the pain that you're feeling. So if you're listening to someone with an open heart, then you can say, I hear you. That sounds painful. Like just to be able to have that, someone say that, like, I hear what you're saying and I empathize with you. That's having an open heart. And that's the objective of this Mercury in Leo energy. And I feel like this is why we're getting the retrograde in Leo, is because right now we need extra work here. Extra time.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, the planet of relationships, also transiting through Leo, forms a trine, a supportive aspect with the North Node, the karmic pathway of the soul, or soul's purpose, which is also transiting through Aries. So Mercury forming a trine with Chiron, Mercury in Leo, Chiron in Aries, Venus in Leo forming a trine with the North Node in Aries. The aspect between Venus and the North Node occurs from Wednesday, July 17th to Saturday, July 20th, with an exact trine occurring on Friday, July 19th. So now we're looking at relationships, opening our hearts in our relationships, being authentic in our self-expression within our relationships. Are you being authentic through your self-expression within your relationships? In expressing what you value, what's important to you.
And do you have a sense of what does it feel like when you're being authentic, or
Yeah.
if
absolutely.
someone's not sure if they're being authentic?
When you're authentic, you're not thinking.
What are you doing instead?
You're just doing. You're just being. You know, like, think of Aries. It's the ram. The ram doesn't think before it smacks horns with another ram. It just does it. It's instinctual. It knows that that's what I have to do in order to establish dominance so that I can lead the herd, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to lead. So the ram's not saying, well, do I think I don't know, maybe. Well, I don't want to hit him too hard because it might hurt them. No, it's just doing it. There's no judgment. There's no thought. Like, the opposite of Aries is Libra. Well, this side, that side. What are you doing? You're thinking, you're weighing, you're trying to value both sides and figure out which side is better. The opposite of that is Aries. I don't need to think about it. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. It's that energy. And then the Leo energy is the heart. And when your heart is open, you're laughing. You're having fun. You're not thinking. You're not thinking. If you go to a comedy show and the stand-up comedian is making you laugh, you're not thinking, well, I'm not sure if that's funny or not. Well, I guess it is funny, so I'm going to laugh now. Ha, 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 ha. No, it just hits you, and you're laughing. You feel that sense of joy. So if you're in the frequency of joy and non-thought, then you're in that frequency of authenticity. and open-heartedness. And that's what this transit, with Venus and Leo forming a trine with the North Node in Aries, is all about.
So specifically in relationships, you said?
Relationships, but also your values.
Mm-hmm.
Because Venus is values. It's the planet that rules the 5 physical senses. So, it's in order to relate to somebody, you have to have something that you relate to them on, right?
Right. It's
You
true.
like that? I like that. Oh, wow, we can relate on this. We both like the same food. We both like the same football team. We both like fill in the blank. That's how we relate to one another. So it's relationships, but it's values, because values are the senses. I like this, I don't like that. It smells good, it smells bad. It tastes good, it tastes bad. So what is that authentic to you? Now, the next transit, Mars, continuing at the final degree of Taurus, forms a sextile, a supportive aspect, with Neptune, the god of fresh water and the sea, the planet of illusion, deception, compassion, intuition, transiting retrograde through the mutable water sign, symbolized by the fish Pisces. This is at the final degree. And this, like Mars's transit with Uranus, the conjunction in Taurus, this is the final time that Mars will align with Neptune in Pisces from Taurus for the next 140, 50 years. This is the 8th time Mars in Taurus has aligned with Neptune in Pisces since 2011. It happened May 12th, 2011, April 26th, 2013, April 12th, 2015, March 27th, 2017, March 10th, 2019, February 13th, 2021, and August 11th of 2022. And here we are again, the final time, which this is connecting our reality to our unconscious. The actions that we take within our reality, and how are they influenced or reflected by our unconscious, by our dreams, our fantasies.
Well, and I can see how it's important to consider what you value as a part of this transit too.
Absolutely, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this transit occurs from July 17th to the 21st, Wednesday to Sunday, with an exact sextile occurring on Saturday, July 20th. But what you're saying, Gabriella, values. So the actions that you're taking to secure what you value, does that align with your fantasies, your dreams?
Right. Well, are the actions you're taking really aligned with your values, or are they aligned with someone else's?
Tell me more about that.
Well, I think about this a lot, how when we choose our first career path, just how young and impressionable we are. When we go off to college and we choose what we want to study, which often funnels us down a particular path or direction with direction in terms of career, how our brains aren't even fully formed. I mean, there's so much responsibility during that time to make decisions that I think often we're trying to figure out what we're going to value in the future. Or we're influenced by what our parents value, or influenced by what society values. Often it comes down to money. What can I make a living doing? What does society value in terms of career options? And so I think there's some conditioning around that.
Yeah, I think all these themes that you're bringing up really coincide with this alignment. Of course, money and values, that's Taurus, but thinking about being impressionable, that Pisces energy just kind of envelops you with everyone. everything that everyone else is feeling. All like, how do the opinions of others influence your unconscious? Like when you're sleeping or when you're driving down the road, going someplace you go to all the time and you're not really paying attention to where you're going, your mind's just kind of drifting off. What are you thinking about? Who are you thinking about? Who's popping into your mind?
Mm-hmm.
That is influencing you in some way.
Right. Well, and I think we could take it a step further with this example of, choosing what to major in college, for example. You could say, we're so limited by even the choices we have available to us in a college program, right? Look at your life. There's no like, come here and major in astrology.
No, yeah,
Come get a
totally.
master's degree in astrology.
Right.
So it's like we're given this menu, like you can order off of this menu, but who wrote the menu?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
the menu is based on what someone else values.
Yep.
So even the decisions that you thought you had, I have all these decisions to make of what I want to study in college, there's even limitation in that. So going back to, I mentioned this off the cuff earlier, but something that I really value is freedom. I would have really valued someone saying to me, hey, this is just an example of what your life could look like, but you could actually do something completely different. So I think there's something here around, certainly turning the question back to yourself around what do you value, but even expanding consciousness around what is possible in terms of what you could possibly value.
What do you mean by that?
Like maybe it's this, you said Neptune, right? Maybe it's this Neptunian quality of like dreaming about future possibilities or allowing for there to be a fantasy element. Like maybe what you would truly value is something that doesn't exist yet.
True.
That doesn't exist in your own awareness and possibly doesn't exist yet in group consciousness. Does that make sense with what you're talking about? That's what's coming up for me.
Yeah, I feel like there is this opening that's occurring here with this transit. And as it leads us into the next transit, this happens the same day that Mars forms this sextile with Neptune, immediately after transits into Gemini, which is the mutable air sign symbolized by the twins and ruled by Mercury, the planet of the mind. It's encouraging our curiosity. So, like what you're saying is you wish you'd been given an opportunity to maybe have a different choice, for your awareness that there were other possibilities to really be opened up, because the possibilities after high school, let's say, can feel quite limiting. It's you go to this college, you go to that college. Most people go to college after high school, and then you pick a major.
I would have just loved someone to say to me, like, hey, just so you know, these are not all the career options that exist in the world.
No one said that to you?
I don't think so. If they did, it didn't land for me.
Yeah. I definitely had people telling me that.
Which is maybe why you're an astrologer.
Yeah. Because like when it came to like choosing a major, I chose communications. My mom's like, what do you want your major to be? I'm like, which one has the least math requirements? Because that was my least favorite subject. And she was like, well, communications only has a statistics course. You like statistics? I'm like, yeah, that sounds interesting. So I chose communications. But everyone that I knew who'd gone to college was like, your major really doesn't have anything to do with what you end up being. Some people it does.
For some people it does, depending
but
on what you pick.
most people, I don't think it really does. You just go to college because that's what you're supposed to do. You need a 4-year degree to get a job.
I guess for me, I took it really literally
You did.
because I studied design and merchandising, and then that's what I did.
Yeah, I think that's your Virgo moon practicality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're very practical. I'm a Pisces moon, so I was not practical.
But you could say, what do you do for work? You communicate, so...
Well, and that's
I'm just saying.
and that's the see, that is my Pisces moon. Because my Pisces moon says whatever I major in college is going to help me in life somewhere down the line. I may not do a job that is, and the thing is like where I went to school at UCSB, like communications, the communications major is not a practical major. It's all theory. Mm-hmm. It's all understanding how men communicate with women, how people communicate in an organization. It's studies on how people communicate. Whereas like I'd heard like if you go to Arizona State and you're a communication major, then they're training you to be on camera and in the media. But that's not how it was at UCSB. It's like, let's just understand how people communicate. And so that was interesting to me. And of course, yes, it does play into what I'm doing now, learning to communicate, because I took a lot of classes on studying the nuances of how people communicate with each other.
Well, one thing the last thing I'll say about this, because it's tangentially related, but I've noticed actually that a lot of people in the fashion industry transition over into healing spaces or self-care spaces.
Because it's the arts.
It's the arts, but also when I look back at sort of my desire to be in the fashion world, I wanted to make the world a more beautiful place, a more harmonious place. And when I think about what I do as a therapist or in my work, my energy healing work, it's still about wanting to help improve or wanting to help make things more beautiful, not in a superficial way, but in a deep, more holistic way of wanting to support people in accessing their true nature or healing through pain and suffering. So ultimately, the intention is actually the same, but it's much more meaningful for me personally.
Exactly. So
and it's actually more creative.
So you ended up in the right major anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I had classes where I was like learning how to rearrange things on a shelf. So it's like,
but
I don't know that I'm using that practically.
Are you kidding me?
But that's not connected to my work now. That's something I already knew how to do.
Okay, well, it's an easy class to take then. You got to have a few easy classes. Well, speaking of communication, again, Mars, the god of war, the planet of action, aggression, and conflict, transits into the sign of communication, Gemini, on Saturday, July 20th. It will transit through Gemini until September 4th. So from July 20th to September 4th, Mars is encouraging you, giving you the courage to listen, to ask questions, to gather information, to learn a little bit about a lot, to connect, to see things from all different perspectives. Gemini is the twins, so it's not just, well, it's the twins, so it is the binary, red and blue, but I think of Gemini as even more multiplicity. A lot of different choices here. 32 flavors of ice cream. The last time Mars transited through Gemini was August 20th, 2022 to March 25th, 2023. That was a 6-month period because Mars was retrograde. That was an extended period that was hoping to help us listen and learn. I don't know, maybe we got a little further. I guess it's still to be determined. But the time before that was March 3rd to April 23rd, 2021. So think back to those dates for clues on what could be in store for you this time around as Mars transits through Gemini. Of course, if you were born with key astrological points in Virgo or Pisces, then there could be challenges coming up as the god of war transits through a sign that is squaring those signs for you. So for instance, if you were born with the moon in Virgo or the moon in Pisces, when Mars is transiting through Gemini and squaring that moon, there could be conflicts that come up in terms of your home life or in terms of just your emotional well-being. If you were born with Venus in Virgo or Venus in Pisces, then there could be conflicts coming up in terms of your relationships. Of course, if you were born with the sun in Virgo or Pisces, then this is a challenging period for you to experience in terms of your identity and how you're expressing yourself. Through it all, the way that you navigate these challenges is by tapping into your curiosity, asking questions, gathering information, listening, learning.
Admitting that you don't know everything.
Right. Exactly.
Oftentimes, there's a lot of suffering that comes from a really rigid perspective that you know exactly what's happening.
There is, see, that is it. That's the fear. Like we were talking about earlier. Like if you're wanting to shut somebody up, it's because you think you know what they're going to say and you don't want to hear it. Instead, what you should do is have the courage to say, that's an interesting perspective. Can you tell me more about how you've come to that conclusion? And then when they answer you, you ask them another question, and another question, and another question, and another question, until you get to the point where you're like, wow, okay, I really see where you're coming from. I don't agree with your perspective or maybe even your methods to exert your beliefs, but I do understand the reason for you having those beliefs. And I would have to say that if I was in your shoes, I probably wouldn't be much different than you. And now we're connected. That person's like, wow, okay, they understand me. I don't need to scream. I don't need to yell. I don't need to punch them in the face in order to get their attention and help them understand how I'm feeling.
It takes a lot of patience to do what you're describing.
It takes a lot of patience. And that's the challenge of Gemini, because Gemini is very impatient. So Mars transiting through Gemini is going to give that really kind of frenetic. We're on the shadow side, the other side of the coin with this Mars and Gemini energy is a bunch of people screaming and yelling at each other. The god of war and the sign of communication. I'm trying to give the other side, which is have the courage to listen. But on the flip side, it's a bunch of people screaming at each other because they don't have the patience to listen.
Well, and we all know that the energy that you bring to the question itself is going to affect the answer.
That's it. If you're going to raise your voice, then that's going to affect the energy of the conversation.
Absolutely. If you ask an angry question, you're more likely to get an angry response. Not guaranteed, depending on, how the other person is orienting. But you're most likely going to get that energy returned to you, whether it's kindness, compassion, patience, or anger, blame.
That's right.
It's an important influence.
Yep. It feels like there's some big conversations happening here at the end of the week, especially with regards to the community. Because as Mars transits into Gemini, it forms a trine with Pluto, the god of death, lord of the underworld, the planet of transformation, transiting through the fixed air sign symbolized by the water bear Aquarius. Aquarius represents the community. Pluto is transforming our relationship to the community. Do you have the courage to be a part of the conversation? Do you have the courage to listen to the community? Do you have the courage to help those within the community listen to each other? Connecting different voices together so that we can find that cohesiveness to really transform the community in a way that feels more inclusive to everyone. Not just this group or that group, but all the groups. Where we have an understanding of one another.
So there's a real potential for healing here.
Let's hope.
But it could go either way. As you could say that about anything, but I'm especially hearing, that there's an opportunity to evolve here.
Yes.
And that the reward is not just on an individual level, but collectively.
Collective, exactly. This transit occurs from July 20th, Saturday, until Tuesday, July 23rd, with the exact trine occurring on Sunday, July 21st. There's also Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, transiting through Leo, opening the heart, forms a sextile, a positive aspect to Jupiter, the god of thunder, lord of justice, the planet of luck and expansion, transiting through Gemini. So Mars transiting through Gemini, Jupiter transiting through Gemini, the gods of war and thunder, like communication, conversation, coming up, getting big. Venus in Leo aligning with Jupiter. This is Friday, July 19th to Monday, July 22nd, with the exact sextile occurring on Sunday, July 21st. So big conversations coming up in relationships, open-hearted. Let's focus on that, listening, connecting, seeing the big picture, being curious. That's the energy here. Though Mercury transiting through Leo is squaring Uranus at the end of the week. That's creating tension. That's from Friday to Monday as well. July 19th to the 22nd, with the exact square happening on Sunday, July 21st, where we're opening our heart and we're listening, but the collective is sharing their values and we're like, oh, no, that doesn't work for me. There could be some real pushback here and some tension. But hopefully with the aspects of Mars and Pluto and Venus and Jupiter, we're able to get through those bumps in the road and find that middle point.
Well, and that's the thing about asking questions is you don't know what you're going to get back.
Right.
You might not like the answer.
Exactly. But that's where the heart comes in. Do you have the courage to hear what you don't want to hear? And then when you hear what you don't want to hear, do you have the courage to ask more questions, to learn more about where this perspective is coming from? Like, let's recognize that we are all here. We're all breathing the same air. We all need food and water and sleep. We have so much in common.
Well, and we're all here at the same time.
Yes. We're all experiencing these same planetary transits. Let's work with the energy together. But not a lot of people are aware of what the energy is. So it's up to you who are listening to this show to really work with the energy. And to be mindful that when you get into those tense situations, to try to take a step back and be coherent and listen and face your fears and insecurities and not fall into them or hide from them and get sucked into that tense frequency. It's going to drag you down.
Yeah.
Now, before these last transits even happen, but along the same time as these transits are happening, is the full moon in Capricorn, which is happening at the 29th degree, and it's forming a sextile with Neptune in Pisces. This is occurring on July 21st, exactly at 3:16 a.m. Pacific time. So, depending on where you are in the world and listening, whatever that is relationship to the Pacific time, take a look, see when that's happening for you. But this is a release.
So you mentioned this is our second full moon in Capricorn.
Yes.
Can you explain maybe why you see that happening energetically, or what do you make of that?
It's releasing energetically. It's releasing those. When I think of Capricorn's cardinal earth. It's symbolized by the goat. You know, there's a acronym, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And you think of the goat standing on the top of the mountain. I'm up here, you're down there. That's the energy that we need to release. That energy that I am above you. I am the authority of you. Let me tell you what you need to know.
So we need to release the ego.
Yes.
I would say that's the underbelly of the ego.
Yes. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We're releasing that so that we can learn to be more kind, caring, nurturing, and compassionate, and empathetic. That I am not better than you. I am not the greatest of all time. You are not the greatest of all time. There is no greatest of all time. We are all the greatest of all time in our own unique way, and we're all equal. So it's about coming off from the mountain, off your high horse, thinking that you know more than everyone else, and being kind. That's what this full moon is about. And so if you're curious to learn how the next lunar cycle will be affecting you, which is going to be the new moon in Leo and the full moon in Aquarius, I encourage you to enroll in my moon cycle classes at theweeklytransit.com. I've added new classes on Saturday. So there is a Saturday option available in addition to the Monday and Wednesday classes. In these classes, we get deep into your astrological code to determine how the lunar cycle is affecting you directly and how you can work with the energy to your benefit. So I hope to see you in class. Any other thoughts or questions on the full moon?
I guess the only other thing that's coming up for me is we talked a little bit about politics or alluded to politics earlier in the show. And I know Capricorn represents the government, rules the government.
Yep.
And so when we talk about releasing maybe our egos or our obsession with having to be the best or having to be the authority, I just can't help but think how that might relate to this time politically.
Absolutely. It does. Yes. And we've got 2 new moons in Capricorn this year, 2 full moons in Capricorn this year. So in an election year, there's 4 major lunar transits that involve Capricorn. So really what that's saying is, how do you want to take responsibility for yourself? Because it's not the red team or the blue team that's going to take responsibility. They will take responsibility for you, but do they really have your best interests at heart? They don't, because they don't have a heart. They're a political party. It's a machine. It's not a living human being. So there is no heart. They have an agenda. And so it's really about what's right for you. What's right for you? How can I take greater responsibility or accountability for my own personal authority? And with this full moon in Capricorn, it's about having compassion and empathy for what it means to be an authority and for the work that it requires to be in that position where you can take care of yourself.
Powerful. Our question today comes from Manuel. In the Placidus House System, why are some houses smaller and more condensed than other larger, roomier houses in the chart? Do the angular houses have to do with their sizes?
Thank you for your question, Manuel. Nice to hear from you. In the Placidus House System, the size of each house varies greatly depending on the latitude of the individual's chart. So, like if you're born at the equator, that's a different position on the planet than if you're near, let's say, the North Pole in Iceland. The closer somebody is to the poles at the moment of birth, the more unequal the size of the houses. Because the sun is either in the sky or not in the sky for an extreme amount of time. As opposed to the equator, the sun is up 12 hours a day and down 12 hours a day. It's equal, right?
Well, equator is equal.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yes. So the angular houses, the first and the seventh, the ascendant, descendant, and the fourth and the 10th, the IC and the MC, the midheaven, and the immune coeli, which means bottom of the sky. Midheaven is the top of the sky. Those are the houses that determine where the other houses go.
Okay.
And so, I'm trying to think, I'm a very visual learner, so I wish I could just show you. But if you look at a chart, if you go on AstroGold, if you have the program AstroGold, which is what I have, you can literally click minute by minute and just see the sun rise up and carry through the sky. So if you think about summer in Sweden, let's say, where it's light out until 11, 12 o'clock at night, and then the sun comes up at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. The sun's in the sky for a long time, but the sun is only in one sign. It's not moving from sign to sign during the day. It's in one sign, which means if the sun is in Leo, then that means the signs that are rising along the horizon while the sun is in the sky, it's happening very slowly. Because the sun, it's taking the sun a longer time to move from sunrise to sunset. Whereas from sunset to sunrise, it's moving very quickly. It's not taking much time for the sun to get from sundown to sun up. So the signs that are rising along the horizon at night are coming up much quicker, which means those houses are going to be much smaller.
That makes sense.
Okay, cool. I hope that makes sense to you, Manuel. Thank you for the question. Would love to see you in a class, and I could show you on the screen, and maybe it would make even greater sense for you. So I hope that helps, though. So thank you for Gabriella.
Thank you, Scott,
for the questions that you had for me. You had a lot of great questions for me today, so thank you. And thank you to our listeners. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Until then.
Thank you for listening to the Weekly Transit. If you're curious to learn how these transits or any others may be affecting you, or if you are interested in learning more about your astrological code, contact me for a reading at theweeklytransit.com. If you're interested in delving into the world of psychotherapy with Gabriella, you can connect with her at innervisionpsychotherapy.com. This episode was produced by me, Scott Tajarian. Music written by Ben Leinbach from Listen Deep by Amber Herzog-Lyman. Wishing you all the best as you ride the planetary waves.